The decks are shuffled, the webcams are out, and today, an elite group of duels from across North America have gathered online for the Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG Remote Duel Invitation.
Despite being built out of necessity, Yu-Gi-Oh! Remote Duels have a very bad reputation in the community. It might be because the larger ones are often poorly run. Maybe it's the overall experience, which in many duels' opinion just doesn't stack up to in-person events. It could also have to do with the cheating scandals and constant controversies. To me, one thing has been made clear, especially after the absolute debacle that was Remote Duel YCS Pasadena. After a year and a half of this, I think most Yu-Gi-Oh! Duelists are pretty much over the whole Remote Duel experience. Considering that YCS Las Vegas and all regionals throughout North America for the month of February will officially be replaced with Remote Duels, I thought now was a good time to air some long-held grievances with this dueling format and give some valuable constructive, yes, constructive criticism. For the record, in this video, I am in no way attempting to invalidate Remote Duels or the prestige of winning/topping one. I've never topped the YCS myself, but I have made top 8 at quite a few regionals in my time, and I'll be the first to tell you, it was damn hard. Entering these competitive events and winning 3 to 4 times as much as you lose is no small or easy feat. But before we jump into the video, a quick thank you to our sponsor. This video is brought to you by the Domain trading card game. Domain is an interesting and unique take on the standard TCG, truly unlike anything you've ever experienced. Domain can be best described as Yu-Gi-Oh! Duelist of the Roses meets chess, but played at a fast and thrilling pace. It's exciting, tactical, free of OTKs, and best of all, it's incredibly skill intensive. Just like chess, every game is won by taking out the opponent's king, but unlike chess, Domain is played on a beautiful and vibrant map filled with 6 different terrain types. Terrain affects everything from combat damage to overall stats to how you'll roll out your plan of attack on the enemy. In Domain, you'll get some of the best and most recognizable mechanics of monsters like continuous and trigger effects you've grown to love, just without the agony-inducing pitfalls of FTK, milling, or opponent to stall for time. Domain is 100% free to play, and you'll never need to spend a dime to gain access to its wide variety of powerful and gorgeous cards. Domain features fantastic music, an easy intuitive tutorial, and a fast-growing, passionate, friendly community. Start playing Domain today at enterthedomains.com or check out the link in the description below to check out their community through their Discord. Let me first preface all the complaints about Remote Duels by stating, in Konami's defense, I don't believe Yu-Gi-Oh! Remote Duels were ever intended to be a long-term thing. In fact, I don't think they would have ever even existed if it weren't for the ongoing 2020 pandemic. So even though they're a unique and interesting new way to duel, Konami probably thought of them as you would a band-aid. Something temporary, quick and simple that functions just well enough to get the job done. Honestly, I'll admit, it's a good concept in theory, and I kinda wish they existed back in the GX or 5Ds days. Then I wouldn't have had to drive 2.5 hours sometimes to regionals in Virginia. The elimination of travel is the single most appealing aspect of Remote Duels for someone like myself. This of course means with the elimination of travel also comes the elimination of travel costs, such as fuel, food, or possibly hotels. Aside from those aspects, which just make events easier and cheaper to get to, Remote Duels, more importantly, often open up high-level competitive events to younger players who may not have their own means of transportation. It's really not a stretch to say that for a lot of Dragon Duel age players out there, a Remote Duel Regional or YCS may be the only event they can attend in any given month. In my book, Remote Duels definitely justify their existence. However, as the title implies, it ain't all sunshine and rainbows. The first major issue for Remote Duels was actually one that many theorized the second Konami announced them. This surrounds rampant speculation of cheating in these events and how difficult it is to thwart. Intentional cheating of course happens at in-person events as well. Intentionally stalling and deck stacking are the 2 most commonly attempted, but there's also about a dozen other seldomly used forms. The thing is, 90% of duelists aren't brazen or dumb enough to attempt to cheat right in front of their opponent's face. I mean that literally. At in-person events like regionals, you're usually no more than a few feet apart from your opponent. This means it's easy for them, other duelists around you, and judges to see every single thing you do. So contrary to popular belief, successfully cheating IRL and not getting caught is actually pretty hard to do. Simply put, it's easy to notice and pick up on strange behavior. Also keep in mind, Judges periodically walk around monitoring tables to make sure that things are running smoothly. Their hawk-like eyes are often looking for foul play the entire time. If Eduardo's hand stayed like this and he simply responded by flipping one of these cards over and it appeared on screen the entire time, I would have no issue. There'd be no accusations of him cheating. However, that is not what's going to happen. So you can see, just keep your eyes on Raul's hand up here. Now his hand is, starting to be off screen. Hey, let's keep it up. There it is. His hand has completely vanished off screen. This card is the one that we're focused on. This is the one that is going to disappear, and then it is going to become the perfect counter for this situation. See if it just disappeared. His other hand disappeared too. Okay, interesting. He apparently needs to not only take the card off screen, but he needs to hold it with both hands. He needs his other hand to disappear from screen as well. Remotos, on the other hand, seem like the Wild West. I've personally uploaded a video of last year's Latin American Remoto Invitational featuring a duelist in the semi and grand finals, doing not only highly suspicious actions, but quite frankly, what looks like blatant cheating. There was also the North American equivalent of this same exact event, won by Cesar Gonzalez. After winning, there were some accusations on YouTube about Cesar deck stacking throughout the event. This would come full circle after he received a 1-year suspension for cheating after making it to the top 4 at the Remoto YCS 2021.
The bottom of his deck, and that's what he's going to pick up?
No, there's nothing that falls. You can literally see it here. He's holding his stack. He's got, look at his hand. There's a card in his fucking hand.
Yeah.
No,
there's,
dude,
there's 100% something in his hand.
Look at
saying
that.
Chaos Max. He's not playing
It's
it.
right there.
Only probably
In the semifinals of this event, he appeared to add a card to his hand from, well, somewhere, I'm not exactly sure. When it comes to cheating at these events, it's not just that there are far more accusations than standard in-person ones, it also has to do with the fact that cheating is far more difficult to stop at these events. Some of this just has to do with the very nature of remote duels, like a player's camera conveniently going out or freezing for a second. That player will most likely claim technical difficulties, but you have no idea what they did in that time, even if it was for a second or two. For an experienced player, that can be enough time to add a nearby card to their hand, which can completely change the game. We've seen instances where a duelist's hand, cards, not their physical hand, will disappear off screen for a couple of seconds. Again, the same thing could be taking place during that time. In fact, online, a lot of people have joked and posted memes about setting high impact cards close to them, but just out of the camera's sight, just in case they're in a bind and they have to pull a Yusei Fudo from Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds. Things like playing with marked cards while using an incredibly low quality camera, adding cards to your hand or deck from off screen, or cutting off your camera for a quick second just aren't possible in person. Furthermore, Konami has actually made definitively proving cheating has occurred in a remote duel nearly impossible with their policy that outright bans recording of any duels by either duelist.
Oh no, like my opponent was cheating. And then, of course, you guys know you're not supposed to be recording any of your matches whatsoever because it's against tournament policy. My favorite thing that I love seeing from the player base is like, no, screw the rules, I'm gonna record my... Okay, you get caught, you're gonna literally get disqualified, or you're gonna get some sort of penalty for this.
This means that even if you have your opponent dead to rights on video attempting to cheat, the video evidence isn't admissible. In fact, you'll end up being the person who gets punished for breaking terms of service. How that makes any sense is completely beyond my comprehension, as remote duel disputes simply will devolve into he said, she said, which of course gets us nowhere. The second issue with remote duels is another huge turnoff, and as of right now, seems fairly unavoidable from a player's perspective. This relates to how poorly large remote duel events are run, specifically the YCS tournaments. Remote Duel YCS Pasadena was a catastrophe, and the horror stories I've heard and seen coming from that event might turn people off of remote duels forever. For starters, on day one, there was often a wait time between rounds that reached up to 2 full hours. This alone was utterly ridiculous, and the committed duelists who wanted to advance in the tournament were dueling well after midnight, which is absurd.
And then I believe officially the last round of Swiss, let me double check here. I believe the last round of Swiss ended at literally what, like 1 a.m. No, it was later than that. Holy crap. Final standings were posted at 2:41 a.m.
From what I've gathered, hundreds of players didn't show up for the first 2 rounds of Swiss, which in theory should have made the event run smoother after, let's say, maybe the 4th round or so. But, as it seems, the exact opposite happened. Large-scale Yu-Gi-Oh! Remote Duel tournaments use a match reporting system that involves a judge bot who records the winner of each duel. The winner of each duel simply types to the judge bot, and the judge bot reports the result. Seems like a fairly safe and solid system. That is, until the judge bot goes down and players can't report their results, which totally happened at this event. Not to mention, there were numerous stories of players not even showing up to their duels at all, then simply reporting to the judge bot that they in fact won the duel. Since the judge bot isn't an actual person and apparently has no idea how to discern who is lying and who's telling the truth, this led to massive disputes at the YCS. To summarize it in just a few words, basically all hell broke loose. At an in-person event, something like this almost never happens because there's a physical match slip that both players have to sign after a duel concludes, and only the winner keeps the slip to report the result. One of the main reasons in-person tournaments start late, have long waits between rounds, or go massively over on time is simply because way more duelists show up to the event than the tournament organizer or Konami expected. This is perfectly understandable. If you look at the biggest example of this for YCS events, you'll probably notice these are the same tournaments that broke attendance records. However, this wasn't true with Remote Duel YCS Pasadena. In fact, Pasadena was an attendance capped event, so Konami knew exactly how many people to expect, and as mentioned earlier, even got a couple hundred less because of no-shows. And yet, the event still had all the problems of a YCS twice its size. Want to hear one of those horror stories? How about getting a round 1 feature match and being told that you don't need to report the winner to a judge because it is a feature match, only to then have the judge bots drop you and your opponent completely from the tournament for not reporting the result of the duel. The 2 players would later be re-added to the tournament and given round 2 buys because of the mistake, but it just goes to show you how big of a you-know-what show the Remote Duel tournament scene can be. The last major issue with Remote Duels isn't Konami's fault at all, and I've covered it before in other videos, so that's why I'm talking about it last. This has to do with the pure intangibles, the special magic you could say that just make in-person events so much fun, and how Remote Duels noticeably lack them. Things like talking to your friends in between rounds, or catching up with associates or old rivals before the event even starts. It can be things that don't even happen at the Yu-Gi-Oh! Tournament itself that still make the experience memorable or enjoyable, like going out to eat with your teammates or having a nice theory crafting session.
It is just not the same, and I cannot pretend like it is an enjoyable experience. It just doesn't compare having in-person flesh and blood Yu-Gi-Oh! Versus like this weird Skype dueling on a platform like Discord that is not designed to have 500 people streaming at any given time over a shaky connection versus an opponent who could logically be cheating, but there's no way either of you could ever prove it. Just a real frustrating experience that is exacerbated by the unbelievable downtime between rounds. I mean, 45 minutes goes pretty quickly when you're chatting up bad beats with friends, but when you're like sitting in your own room being like, maybe I should get cleaning.
Remote Duels generally offer none of these fun social interactions, and honestly it's just the opposite. In between rounds, you're in a room by yourself, twiddling your thumbs or mindlessly web surfing as you wait for the next round to start. Sure, you can text a friend or maybe get them on Discord, but it's just not the same. There's no car ride home where the whole team shares stories and talks about their thrilling matches, or hitting the pool one last time because it's your last night in the hotel. No burgers with the guys as you sorrow over how you got sacked in round 6. There just isn't any of those amazing experiences. It should go without saying, but in my opinion, all of these combine to make in-person events a full-on great experience, and Remote Duels, well, just less than that. In closing, I believe Remote Duels still serve a purpose and have a place in this game. Konami should continue to hold a few Remote Duel regionals each season for younger players who can't travel as easily, or for duelists like me, who are just lazy. But we definitely learned over the last year, these can never be a full substitute for what we had. The in-person events. Yes, I know that Remote Duels are still Yu-Gi-Oh, but they're Yu-Gi-Oh with all the spark and soul taken out. When it comes to improvements, Konami should definitely consider changing the recording policy. I know they're probably concerned about players' privacy, but the cheating aspect is just too real, and they themselves have already had to ban remote duel champions just months after crowning them. The integrity of these events can't be in question every time you enter them. Lastly, if we don't have enough human judges for remote duel tournaments, maybe have a system where both players sign digital game slips, because while the judge bot can work fine for recording scores, we've seen the horrors of what happens when that thing crashes, and it's just not pretty. Well, those are just my thoughts and opinions on remote duels, its many failures, and some of the issues that duelists also have with Yu-Gi-Oh! Remote duels. I want to hear yours in the comment section below. Thank you very much for watching as always, and subscribe for more content like this in the future.